Shared Connections podcast.
Hi everyone, welcome.
We have missed you. I hope you've missed us too. So, what's up?
Well, I'm good. I'm good. It's been an awesome week actually.
That's it.
Yeah,
Okay. What'd you get up to?
nothing exciting. It's just work,
Ah,
but but this week it's been a good one. We've kind of, I haven't felt like completely overwhelmed.
okay, that's good.
Yeah, for a change.
That's good. I can't relate. And genuinely, I honestly, I can't tell you the last time that I can say that I felt this. Should I say, it's always like a pace for me, and the pace is always fast.
Yeah, that's life, isn't it? The life we live in now is like everything is just it's moving so quick.
And juggling so many things, so many roles is overwhelming. And I think on top of that, the weather, the change. I don't know if you're one of those people that when the winter sets in, you start to get this feeling of feeling gloomy, feeling tired.
It's definitely a thing.
It is, isn't it?
It's definitely a thing.
Mm. I think it's called something. I can't remember now what it's called, but I think that the people that genuinely suffer with, I think it's called the winter blues or something. It's a thing.
I think there's one that's called is it sad, right? Yeah, seasonal something depression.
Yeah. Yeah. I know I think I know somebody that actually really struggles with weather change.
Wow.
But funny enough, I actually prefer when I say this I sound mad, but I actually prefer the winter.
I can get that because I feel like when it's because I say it as well that I prefer to be cold than to be too hot
Yes.
because you can prepare for cold. You wrap yourself a little bit more,
Mm.
have a hot drink, get yourself cozy. But when it's hot, what do you want to do? Peel your skin?
Yeah, you expose yourself.
Ah,
You
even
undress.
at that self, you're still hot. That's the problem.
Yeah,
And this
I think it's
UK
kind of
is not.
difficult to balance, but yeah, it just I think just managing all the weather changes it can get a bit tricky, and I think then even on top of that you get all the setting of the flu, which I've
Yeah.
just literally finished. I had a really crazy chest infection as well, which I've thankfully is past now. But yeah, it's been a tough week, and I'm really hoping that the following because
You will not be as overwhelmed. Well, I think being sick as well doesn't really, it kind of puts a
Mhm.
bigger down on everything because everything takes longer to do, but the
Yeah,
demands are not getting any less.
exactly. Nothing necessarily stops.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
wish that you get a break from work, you get a break from parenting, you get a break from everything else, but no, not necessarily.
Oh,
But
bless you.
thank you.
It's because you want money now.
I
That's why
know.
you're putting your hand in plenty pies because you want
I've been
money.
ahead of a cost of living crisis. My sister, we have to work, please.
School fees is real.
I'm telling you.
Yeah, when you want to relax, school fee will make you humble.
Mm.
You get
Let's not
back
even
into it.
let's not even go into that school fees matter, but it is well. It is well. So, how has your week been? I hope you guys have had a much better week than I have and can relate better more with what Uju has said or resonates more with Uju, not with me, please. But yeah, as you know, it's your girl Pam, and
And my name is Uju.
so I think what we tend to do is have a bit of an icebreaker
Mm-hmm.
before we go into our topic today, which is actually quite an interesting one. I can't wait for us to get into that. But to our icebreaker, which I picked a really interesting card. And
Okay.
I'm not quite sure why I picked this card, but maybe a bit of humor, maybe a bit of I don't know. We'll see. So
So our icebreaker is we've picked out some questions that we're going to
mm,
ask each other, isn't it? Or
yes.
we're both going to
Well, we
discuss
could
it.
both answer,
Mm-hmm.
but I've picked one and you've picked one. So I'll ask you the question and I'll see if I feel like answering. But I'll
All
ask
right.
you first.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So, Uju, how did you get through the breakup with your first love? Actually, who's your first love, Steph?
Very good question. Because even myself, I don't know. Well, let's not go to love because love in itself. Let's just say first relationship,
First
Abi.
butterfly feeling.
First.
Mm, mm.
Getting over that was a find somebody else. That's the only way.
That's sad.
You can't dwell. You can't dwell too long, You just have to shift your focus to other
Mm,
things.
yeah.
I was not one for all this be crying, be eating chocolates, and that.
To be fair, I don't think I've ever known you to be somebody that is overly emotional about things.
Yeah, I'm a bit practical. I'm like, this dude is not crying over me, so plus it helps that I broke it off. I think
Well,
it might have been slightly different
if it was the other way
if it was
around.
the other way around,
Yeah,
then
yeah,
maybe
yeah.
I would have been more devastated.
Yeah.
But because I'm the one, so I kind of made the decision that I'm done with this.
Mm,
So yeah, moved on to focus on other things. But yeah, if it would have been 100% a more different, or it would have been a more difficult, let's put it that way,
mhm.
situation, especially if you were not expecting it.
Well, yeah, true.
You know,
I think I remember the story behind it, but yeah, we're not gonna go into
we're not going there. We're not going there. Yes. But yeah, so that's how I got over that
Okay.
because I was one that ended it. So it wasn't. In actual fact, I don't think has anybody ever broken up with me. No, I don't think so. Mm.
I think okay. Well, that's a different topic.
Story for another day.
Mm. But yeah, I actually don't think I have had an official guy breaking up with me.
Yeah,
But I
yeah,
think I've had situations where it's just
yeah. Ended.
happened. It's
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
ended. Where, yeah, well,
And that's a bit difficult,
that's different.
especially if
Yeah.
more because you didn't see it coming.
Mm.
It's kind of like we were going one direction. How are we here?
Yeah, 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 yeah. To be fair. So I don't know if I want to answer the question because I don't know who to really define as my first love.
Yeah, because what we were really doing was not love now.
We have a very nosy person
I don't understand.
behind the camera. Please mind your business.
I don't understand. So, yeah. So, I don't think, I think now that you're older and wiser, you know that that thing you were doing was not
It
love.
was, yeah,
So, that's what makes this question a little
a
bit
bit of a,
difficult. Yeah.
yeah.
So,
Cause
that's why I say, okay, your first relationship, how did you get over it?
okay, so for me, I was a bit okay. It's, might come to layers. Okay, so I had this thing where, and I say this thing as a joke. It was really bad. So when I was in secondary school, I had boyfriends, right?
Hmm.
Um, people that actually did not even remember that I was dating.
Ah,
Yeah, it was bad. It was one of those things
so they
where
just toasted you,
someone would
just
toast
agreed.
me, and because I was in boarding house, and a lot of the people that were saying yes they were not in my school.
I
Do you understand? And
see.
then you now come back home during the holiday, and
And the
then
person
somebody will
is
be like,
like, ah, my
eh.
girlfriend. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really sad. So I wouldn't really
Yeah.
classify those as
Okay, not those
relationships.
ones.
But
Real,
I think
real
my
relationship.
first relationship, which I ended the relationship because I found out certain things that this person was doing. But it was hard because I think that was the first person I would say I was truly, truly into.
Yeah.
So it's quite similar to you as well.
Mm.
But I ended the relationship with the person, and yeah, it was tough. It was hard because me, I'm unlike you that you are, I don't know where you came from,
Please,
but
I'm emotional. What do
you
you
know
mean?
where is the
I'm
emotion?
emotion,
But yeah, it
right?
was it was hard. It was hard. It was hard. But how did I get through it? I think I just plunged myself into school,
Something
into
else.
work. I
Not
just
another person, unlike me.
Yeah, I did. I did actually.
That's
I
it.
did.
You
I
just
did.
have to focus your attention on other
Yeah,
things, isn't
I
it?
did. I did. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not my advice. So I'm not advising anybody to do that. So it's just
But again, it's not that deep now.
we were kids though.
Yeah, it's not that
We're
deep.
teenagers, so it's not like if this is happening now,
As an adult where the relationship was heading or looking likely to end in marriage,
that
I
would
think
have
that'll be
been
a
a very
different.
different ball
Yeah,
game.
yeah,
A
yeah, I
hundred
totally
percent,
agree. I totally agree.
100%. Right. So my question, though I think I know the answer, but what was your marriage proposal like?
Ah, why do you have to ask this question? Ah,
We are sharing. This they're getting to know
you know when you
us.
want to go back and
Do you
rewind?
understand? Have a do over. Let me leave you to say your own
Mine was
first.
it was such a funny story. We came back one New Year after church service. Came back. and we just both agreed. It was, I can't even tell you who proposed to who.
It was just a mutual
It was just a
conversation.
conversation. I was like, yeah, it's time.
Okay, but at
Let's
least he
do
went
this
to go and buy ring.
after the fact.
But
After we had had the conversation.
okay. And when he went to present you with this ring, did he kneel down?
I don't think so.
There
I
was no
can't
kneeling
remember.
down.
It's not memorable at all.
Wow.
I know.
Wow, wow, wow.
Let's hear your own.
At least I'm in good company. Let's put it that way. So I got a call.
Phone call.
Phone call.
Okay.
Let me tell you the preamble now.
Okay,
So
okay.
we're taking our life with Jesus very seriously,
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We're born again gays.
We're
Yeah.
trying to be very serious with the Lord. So I
Hmm.
got a call from Pastor that come and see me.
Pastor called you to sing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Come and see me.
Very interesting.
So that's how me self. I was thinking, hey God, what have I done again? When they call you,
You know,
come,
there are
it's
some
like
phone
come, they
calls
are
that,
summoning you to principal's office. So I'm
yes.
thinking, God, what did I do?
What have you done now?
Anyway, and then I entered. Pastor is just smiling, and I'm thinking, oh God, oh God, what is this?
He was
So
excited now.
yeah, bless him now. His children are, taking
Mhm.
things to the
Yeah,
next level.
yeah.
So it's like somebody came to see me to say that, he wants to get married to you and all that
Oh
talk and that.
wow.
So that's
That's
how
how it
I
happened.
was made aware of this.
Oh.
And
But when he gave you the ring,
it was in the car. Like, hey,
oh true.
by the
How are we
way,
friends?
here is the ring. In fairness to him, we were going somewhere. We were going out, actually. We were
Mm.
going on a date. We went to a comedy show. So,
Oh.
in fairness to him, he
Mm.
tried there.
Mm.
But it was in the car, kind of like, here you go. And I'm like, all right, thank you. So, there was no kneeling down.
Oh
I
wow.
should have collected it, Abby.
No.
I should have made him go outside and kneel down.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But
Yes.
overexcitement.
Okay, so to our topic today, we're talking about code switching.
Code switching.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for those that don't know what that is, so it's the practice or of sort of changing the way you speak, the way you express yourself, the way you present yourself in
Mm.
different
Settings.
settings.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, as the typical example is like when you're at work because you're relating to non Africans or non Nigerians,
Mm-hmm.
you have a different, way of presenting, a different accent, maybe.
So you turn up,
Y-
depending on the setting you're in,
Yeah.
you turn
And
up different.
here is very evident, so in our amongst us Nigerians, we present ourselves in a certain way. Then obviously when you get to work or in school or whatever, when you're dealing with non-Nigerians,
Yeah,
you present yourself in a very
differently.
different way.
Yeah,
So that is code switching and the ability to move between the two.
yeah.
So I would say question then for you is, do you find yourself having to code switch, or are you the same everywhere?
No. Oh my God, no. I am. In fact, I think when people who know me professionally, if they hear me talking on this podcast, they'll probably think it's a different person because I've had to master, should I say, almost the British accent. In fact, sometimes my children, when I'm on the phone, they're like, "Ah, like, Mommy."
Really?
I remember one time I was talking to a mentor, a social work mentor, somebody that is, quite close to me, but she's Jamaican. And so we're talking on the phone, and I, my daughter, Tony, that one does not have filter. So she came into the room and she's like, Mommy, who are you talking to? I was like, mind your business. And she's like, Mommy, but you're not British, you're Nigerian. Ah, it was so
It's
embarrassing.
always the
I
children,
know.
isn't it?
And it was how she said it. And, the lady laughed her head off. She was like,
Oh, the lady was still on the
oh,
phone.
yeah, she could hear. It was on my, it wasn't a work, it wasn't
I
like a
know. I'm
work
just saying she
call.
didn't even wait
Yeah,
for the phone
no,
call to
she came
finish.
in because normally when I'm
Oh,
talking to, I think the reason why she felt comfortable to say is because it was my actual phone.
yeah,
So
yeah,
when I'm in meetings, they know I'm in meetings. So they don't come in, they don't do any of that. But because I was on my mobile and she came in, I said, who are you talking? Because it was a bit of a shock because anybody I'm talking to on my, except like maybe
GP
yeah.
appointment, all those sort
But
of
if
things.
I'm talking to my people, like my mobile phone is for no, normal conversation,
Personal
personal
relationships. Yeah, yeah.
relationships. So she was a bit like shocked that who are you talking to that you're sounding like this? And she's like, Mommy, you're not British, you're Nigerian.
Wow.
And you know,
Wow.
and it was such an embarrassing moment. But bless, the lady, she took it well, and she laughed as well because she's Jamaican and she could relate.
Probably. Yeah, I'm sure that even she will have had the experience of
Oh yeah,
that.
yeah. Although she's Jamaican born here,
Yeah, yeah.
but she goes back to Jamaica a lot. She's very 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 much into her heritage, very much into her culture.
Hmm.
So but yeah, it was funny. We both laughed about it, but it was just the fact that my because my children know me how I am professionally and how I am with my people.
Hmm.
So they find it even they still find it they struggle
With
with the
the
side of mommy. Which part of mommy are we getting?
So I think it's almost it's an unconscious thing,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
suppose.
The going in between, isn't it?
Yeah, 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 yeah. And I think there is an authenticity when you're trying to talk with your fellow Nigerians. Because for me, even at work, because I work with a few Nigerians, and when I talk to them, it's I can be having one conversation with my colleague, and then they ask me something. I turn and we start having a
Yeah,
conversation, and the Nigerianness comes out,
yeah,
and then somebody else says something. I'm back,
yeah.
and it's not like I'm trying to pretend. It's just I don't know. It's a persona that you've kind of built over time.
You've mastered it.
I'm
Yeah,
not. It's not as if I sound British. I don't. I definitely don't sound British. I just don't sound as Nigerian.
yeah. And I think that's but then what is probably weird is you don't realize just what you sound like till you're actually completely out of this environment. And then when you
Probably.
now go back to, for example, when you go back to Nigeria, there are words that you say without you realizing
Yeah.
that people will know that
Mm-hmm.
I just got back.
And in my mind, I'm sounding very
I
Nigerian.
know
I'm in my
you're putting your
mind.
best effort into that this person just came
Yeah,
from
can
jazz.
you just keep quiet? Please just keep quiet. Yeah, it just reminds me of this podcast, Trevor Noah's podcast, the
Yeah, I
episode that he
listened to
did
that with
with
Lupita.
yeah, and it was very interesting because I never really thought about it about from the angle where she was talking about, where she moved to America, went into acting school and learning the American accent and all of that. And in the process, she lost her Kenyan accent and
Mm.
could not get it back.
Yeah.
So obviously she still has to me, she sounds Kenyan
Yes.
to me
Yes.
when she's talking in that way. But obviously, to a Kenyan, they will pick up on the differences.
Mm-hmm.
And where she was then talking about the giving herself the permission to actually sound the way
And
she sounds
embrace it.
and embrace the new accent, if that makes sense. Because there is that feeling of or that tussle or that struggle, am I not being authentic enough anymore if I
Mm.
no longer sound as I used to sound before?
Yeah. 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 I hear that because it almost there's this setting of an identity crisis nearly
Mm.
that comes with that as well because you're like you start to question am I still Nigerian?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I know that I've been in settings where people who know me and I've now hear that British accent when it comes out. I mean, I'm not saying I sound perfectly British,
Hmm. Hmm.
but I can try and put an accent on. And then when I do, they're like,
What's going
who is
on?
this?
No, but some people is really crazy. I have a friend who was doing a like a webinar
Right.
sort of thing where and I've never seen her in a professional capacity. So she was doing it. I was like, oh, I'll sign up, to show some support. And when this girl started talking, I'm like, you what now?
Mm,
Who are you?
yeah, exactly.
But she has been in the UK since she was like 13.
Right.
So her own accent is proper.
Proper British. Yeah.
And I'm like, wow.
Yeah. But even to your point about what I think what part of what Lupita was saying as well, I think to a certain degree, there is almost a need for it because of the wanting to be accepted. But then it's that struggle of how much of yourself do you let go and how much of yourself do you embrace this newness?
So, is an is losing your accent the same as losing yourself?
So we can look at it from an accent perspective, but
Hmm.
there's also, without you realizing, there are certain cultures, certain British cultures that even over time you have embraced without you realizing.
Oh, for
I'll
sure.
give you an example. When I first came to the UK, this is very, very petty, but I didn't like the whole the British milk. You know, the whole milk.
Oh,
I didn't like it for a really long time. I struggled.
you wanted
And
pig milk.
did pick my sister. Pig milk was it with
Were you
tea,
buying the powder
everything.
or the liquid one?
Both. Both. I didn't like the taste. I hated the taste of whole milk. I couldn't stand it.
Hmm.
But now
You
I
can't
cannot.
do. It's too sweet.
I can't.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it's little things like that. I hated ketchup. I hated ketchup. I didn't like ketchup. But now I can. So it's without you realizing it.
Your palate
Like
is changing.
like turkey. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are certain things I'm Niger all the way. I mean, I went for a Christmas do recently, and I had my work colleague
Stuffy.
who's also from the Caribbean, and we were both laughing our heads off because the turkey, oh,
It was
it
dry.
had absolutely no seasoning. But
Plus, it
we're
ends up
watching.
dry.
And then we're watching everybody else eating this food and really enjoying it. And we're like,
You have to
mm.
layer it with. That's why
I
there's
couldn't. No, I
always
couldn't.
what's that? Was it cranberry
Oh
sauce?
yeah, then we had the cranberry. We had all of it. We had the
You have
cranberry
to
sauce. We
layer
had
all those
the
things.
gravy. We had
Stuffing
all
is
of
the
that.
one I find very strange.
Brussels sprouts.
No, Brussels sprouts is not nice.
I think
Brussels sprouts is not nice.
so. And it's little things. Even like it took a while for me to get used to the chicken, the soft chicken. It took a while, but
But
now I can.
please, that hard chicken is suffered
I
abi.
love I love it.
It's suffered,
I love
please.
it.
No, 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 no.
I love it. I
There's
don't
no
be
there's
carb.
no
I
need for
think
that
that
chicken.
is one that
There is no need for that
because the
hardness.
seasoning goes in.
I beg,
This
seasoning enters of chicken
no,
also.
it doesn't.
Please, that
When you
chicken is
get into it, you will still taste the blandness in it,
no,
no
no, no,
matter
no, no,
how
no,
well
no, no, no,
seasoned it
no.
is. But
No.
anyway, anyway, before we digress,
Eh,
but you know what I mean. So I think that there is in the beat. Is not for me. It's not. I think it goes beyond the accent. I think it goes beyond. Yes, the accent is the main in terms of code switching. But I
mhm.
think that
You
you
have a
almost need
different
to think.
personality.
Yes, you almost need to think in that way to be able to fit
Yeah.
into certain scenarios or even go through certain doors.
So do you have a different personality in your Nigerian accent to when you are uh in a different code? Let's put it that way. Do you have a different personality? Because I find that some people are quieter,
Hmm.
they're more reserved when they are in that mode.
What I would say for certain is I've found my voice. So I feel comfortable and confident in
But
whatever setting I find myself in.
okay, so your personality is the same.
I would say that. Yes. I don't necessarily feel any less inferior in any setting I find myself in. But I think it takes time to really get there. For me, whether I'm in my with my Nigeria's people or whether I'm in work or wherever I find myself, I
Mhm.
I think to a certain degree I now know who I am, and there are certain values that I do not. I this is me
Okay.
regardless of whether I am in a Nigerian setting or I am in a work setting, there are certain things that once you get to know me, I don't compromise on those things. But I think that for many people, it is those compromises that you make along the way that you start to lose yourself a little.
Right. Okay, I get that.
Do you get what I'm trying to
Yeah,
say?
yeah, yeah, I get that. So you don't bring your say authentic. Hey God, oh,
Don't worry. It's the
God,
Nigeria accent coming
oh.
in. Embrace it.
Shy, my ancestral
Your
voice.
Igbo people.
Yes, so shay. Anyway, you're not bringing your authentic self to certain spaces, so that's
Not
why
always.
you're losing. I'm just saying that. So because you're not being your real or your full self. Maybe
Mm.
let's put it that way. Maybe you're not trying to be disingenuous or anything, but you're just not bringing your full self.
Yeah.
So that's why your personality could be very different in different voices. I find I'm quieter. And when I'm in my Nigerianness, I'm louder.
Mm.
Right? Sounds weird. I don't think I'm
But I
I'm not
relate to that.
inauthentic.
Yes, I can relate
I'm
to
just
what you're
louder.
saying.
Yeah.
And I think that people find Africans generally very overpowering
Mm-hmm.
because of our personalities.
Mm-hmm.
And I think particularly Nigerians. Usually when they say Nigerian they carry last is a thing. We don't like look, even have you not heard even Nigerians with the strongest, I've heard Nigerians with really strong accents that
Mm-hmm.
if they have something to say to, they don't care.
But as you
But that's
should.
good. But no,
As
I'm
you
saying that
should.
that's a good thing. But I think that over time, what then tends to happen is when you bring that authentic side of you, which is what you're now talking about, is
Yeah.
when you now see how you're received in particular settings, it almost makes you feel a little bit reclusive in yourself because you're like, "Ah,
Yeah, I get you.
do you understand?"
I
Unless
I get you.
that's when that so now it's now like, okay, I need to stop and study and then now know how I want to relaunch myself.
And that kind of makes you then quieter or recoil a little bit or knocks your confidence sometimes
Yeah,
a
of course,
little bit.
100%.
And then some people don't even just know how to, like for me, if I'm speaking to somebody who English is not their first language, if you mispronounce a word and I still understand the wider meaning of what you're trying to say,
Yeah.
I keep the conversation moving. There's no point, sorry, what? Oh, you mean very annoying.
But although that's not what we're talking about today, but that this is the level of microaggression in terms of racism that people experience,
Mm.
where you hear the typical, or you sound better, you sound better, uh, or you turn up somewhere. I
Yeah,
remember
yeah,
I
yeah,
remember when I turned up somewhere, and the person only knew my first name when I just started working.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
I went to do a home visit and they'd seen my name and surname and they were like, "Oh, I didn't realize you were," of course I knew what she was trying to say.
That she
Like
didn't realize
I
you were
was
black
black. Do you know? And it's
because it's only white people that have pap.
no, no, no. So they now on the phone, I put on my.
I
So then
see. So the
I then
accent,
went to do a home
right,
visit, and I was giving them a report, yeah, right?
right.
And then reading the report, they saw my
Uh-uh.
name, my surname, which is obviously Shudende. So for them, they're like, "Ah, okay, oh," and it for them is like it just rolls out their tongue. Don't even realize.
That they've said this, but
Mm. Because that's how they think. Or of course, I'm sure many of us got that. Oh, you speak very good English.
oh yeah, I've got that one. It's like, oh, um, you have you always lived in the UK? I'm like, no. It's like, oh,
Yeah. So there's that level
because
of
your
they
English
expect
is so good. I'm like, do you realize that English is our national
is our national
language?
language. Yeah.
And you're like, oh, really? Annoying.
And even, again, to the point, why are we made to do this English test? Why are we made to do that?
Well, no, I suppose that one I can understand in the sense of it's not so much the spoken English or accent or anything. It's like you're going to be able to come into this country and adapt. Does that make sense?
But English is my first language.
Oh, why are Nigerians made to do?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought why do you have the English test in general?
No.
Oh,
English is
um,
my I've lived in this country
oh,
for so many
okay,
years.
I
Why am
get.
I
Oh,
being
I
made to
get
do
you.
the do you see what I'm
Oh, I
saying?
get you.
So
I
it's
thought
those
why do
little
you have to do the
no, no,
English
no.
test
So
as
it's
a
those
migrant?
little
Oh, right.
microaggressions that really grind on me. And unfortunately, code switching is something that has almost become like a survival skill for many of us.
Yeah, yeah.
Because, for you to be able to especially when I do quite a bit of public speaking as well. So finding yourself in that setting, you don't want people to not really understand you.
But at the end of the day, though, I find that with a Nigerian accent, if you slow it down
Yeah,
and just speak normally, you're often clearer than trying to put on an accent.
sure.
So the people I've heard people who are trying to put on an accent, I'm like, what you do? You don't
You
sound
sound silly.
now you're not sounding clear. But if you just slow it down and talk,
Mm,
people will understand you. Um But I think it's more the fact that, as you say, it's the acceptance thing that you feel like I need to do it.
And also, I think again to your point is there are people that actually really sound silly when they
Ah,
try and put on the accent.
just you're like, just stop, just be yourself.
Yes,
Just be
you
yourself.
sound
Just
better. Just
slow it down
yeah, you
and
sound
you'll be
better.
fine.
Just people will hear you better. But I mean, the pressure is always there.
Yeah, it is. Oh. Okay, so the next bit I want to talk about on this code switching is how does it affect our children?
Mm,
Because they have completely not just a different, they don't necessarily have a different accent, because that's, but they have a different persona.
yes,
Do you get what I mean?
yes.
Because the accent probably is the same everywhere, but because we are trying to raise them with a Nigerian culture, certain things are not allowed, this and
Yeah, yeah,
that, you
yeah.
speak to this, everybody's an auntie. These small things that we think are small, but they don't have to do that outside. So they have a completely different persona. Are you
Mm.
finding that, or is it just in my head?
I think so. I think for them it is how there's this trend on TikTok and Instagram. I say nakolabo. And I think that for them I don't feel particularly worried because I think they eventually find their own when they, for some of them, and I think we've had this conversation before, where you find that when they leave home, and I think it depends on the upbringing that they get at home, you know, when they now leave home and they really are faced with, because some of them feel quite sheltered, they all they've known is, although they've been out to school, they've done all of those things, they only it's just a community thing. Do you understand what I'm saying? Church is full of Nigerians,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
in terms of most of their social settings, they don't really have that exposure apart from school,
Yeah,
right?
but I suppose when they're older, at primary school, yes, you're containing them, but by the time they get to secondary school, they spend more time with their friends anyway.
They do. But I think that there's a different dynamic when they actually leave home.
Of course. Okay,
And
got
that's
you.
the point I'm trying to make, which is where you find that there's no middle ground with most of them. They either, which I found, change their names safe. Like they don't even embrace their African names anymore because now they're finding themselves in professional settings where they, those, like I was talking about, the microaggressions, they have
Hmm.
to be faced with things like that, and they're not like as thick skinned. So for them, I don't have energy for this. So change it to a different name because they feel like it needs to be accepted. But then you now find other children who get to that point and actually are like, they feel quite strongly about it.
And
They
they
feel
double
quite
down.
proud.
Mm.
So what I'm saying is very, very rarely do we find children where they're just like, whatever. It's one or the other, I find.
So, but my question really, or the thing that I always try to think about is, because they're having to have different personas, which one is their real personality? Because you're saying the real one, or whatever they are most comfortable with, comes out after they leave home. So are they having to hide themselves or hide aspects of themselves when they're at home?
But I think for me, you don't really, really know who you are because it's a process. I think that's the point I'm trying to make. Those are their formative years, isn't it?
Hmm.
And those formative years are the things that they're picking up as they go along.
Okay.
That is making them who they eventually become,
Okay. Okay.
is the point I'm making. So, of course, when they're at home, they would have to adapt to what home life is. When they're in school, they have to adapt to what school life is, which is obviously be able to integrate with their peers, be able to have, communicate with. So I think that those things just, they form those things as they go along and then eventually find who they want to be when they're possibly adults.
So, but does this then make the case for at home being less African, in the sense that, so that you get to see who your children are, or give them the opportunity to express what they are outside of home, so that you know what you're dealing with? Because if your child is completely different outside,
Yeah.
and cannot do anything or say some certain things because this our African home, we can't do this.
Mm.
You never really know who your
What?
child
Yeah.
is. Does that make
Yeah, I
sense?
get what you're saying. But I think,
Um,
yes, a lot of that comes down to how you parent your children
yeah.
and what they see and perceive at home.
Hmm.
And, I always say that home has to be a safe place because I don't always know how I'll react to, and I'm being honest, to certain things that my children will say to me, honestly. But I've always said to them that no matter how bad it is, I might look shocked, I might be angry, but just know that I'm not going to judge you. So I might need a minute.
Mm.
Do you understand?
We
To
listen,
process, we
we
listen, we
don't
don't
judge.
judge. Yeah, but I honestly I think it's a thing because the point you just raised is a really important
I
one.
think so.
It's a very important one because you don't really know what and I think it's not so much your child's personality. I think it's that in relation to what they're exposed to.
Mm-hmm.
So they're exposed to things that not necessarily what they're exposed to at home, but what they're exposed to outside. And when when they're confronted with those things, how are they either rebuffing it or accepting it?
Yeah,
You wouldn't always know that if you
exactly.
don't allow home life to be somewhere that you can actually have those kind of conversations with your children,
Yeah, yeah,
or
yeah.
even give them life opportunities for them to, like some one thing I'm still really struggling with is sleepovers. I'm not one for
No,
sleepovers.
no, no. I think that one should be that we'll have
Yeah,
that as a separate topic
yeah. I'm
because
not one for sleepovers, but I have started to allow myself because how much do you want to shield?
well,
You
you can't
know,
shield them from everything. I accept that, but at the same time, you have your boundaries,
of course. And it's
and
really for them to know what those boundaries are.
yeah, so you have your red lines. Okay, this I can compromise and meet you halfway here, but you see this line, oh, we are not crossing it.
Yeah, yeah. 100%.
Right. Okay. I think I've learned a thing or two. I need to be less rigid.
It's
I,
it's
I
it's it's
I have
hard.
to be less rigid
Do you know what?
and
I'm going to be honest with you, and I'm not sitting here thinking that I'm doing anything right because there are a lot of things that I find that that my children will still say to me that don't get me wrong, you literally the Niger in you wants to come out.
sometimes it comes out. It has to come out. And the other day I was looking at that punishment, that angle 90. Yeah, 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 yeah. And I'm like, you know what? I think I need to incorporate
This,
this
yeah,
because it's character building.
it is, but I think what I'm trying to say is that this society and the changes that we're having to be confronted with is going so quick that even sometimes it's gone the impact it had on your child you don't even notice.
Yeah, I get that, but I also think that core values, regardless of what society is
Oh,
doing,
100%.
cannot change. And that discipline and that firmness in instilling those core values has to remain.
Of course.
Although, and it's when they're adults that they would thank you for it.
Of course. And
So
yeah.
is one of so yes, less rigid in in maybe how we deliver.
Mm,
You understand what I'm
yeah,
saying?
how it's landing.
How it's landing or whatever, but the core values is like this one ain't flying in my house.
Yeah. Yeah, very good point. Because for us, our parents had good intentions in
Yeah.
how they brought us up.
Hmm.
And I think now as adults, we realize that. But
Indeed.
I think back then, the reason why we probably pushed boundaries out, not at home. And those core values, we knew what they were. And, to a large degree, it really did help me. Because there were certain things that I would never do. Even watching, I would be around friends that would do some things like smoking, drinking, but it's just something that subconsciously I just didn't feel the need to do it. And I thank my parents for that because that was the sort of household I grew up in.
Even when you test those values, right? You will test it, sometimes you even cross it, but it just doesn't sit right with you.
Yeah.
Or maybe later on when you're evaluating or whatever, and then you come
A
back to
part of
it.
you now realizes that, oh,
it so-
that's not something I should have done.
you might not even realize it at that time. It's even when you are now forming, or when now that you're older and you're forming your values and you're thinking, where did this even come from in the first place? You realize that, oh, this is what my mom was trying to tell me then that I'm only just understanding now.
Yeah. Yeah. And it, like, like I was trying to say, is the communication that we didn't have.
Yes.
We didn't, to us back then, it just felt like, what, why are you so wicked?
I do. I felt
Everybody's doing
like,
this. Everybody's doing this. Why are you stopping me? you know I think that's what we're trying to change, is that when, I think, communicating those things in a way that they understand. They might
100%.
not fully understand in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that's what you were trying to say, is that at some point when they're confronted with those things,
Yep.
there's a voice
Yep.
that is there, which is that voice that they've had from home, which
100%.
then, hopefully helps them to navigate those things differently.
It must be tough though, being a child with having to contend with two varying
Two varying
backgrounds.
cultures,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And I think ours is not even the most difficult,
Mm-mm.
you know.
We know who we are.
And I'm even saying our culture. I think our culture is not even as, I see some other cultures that are even more, that are even harder
Oh yeah,
to make that transition
yeah, yeah.
and to adapt to this. And it must be really hard for them. I ours was easy. I came to the UK as an adult, so I kind of already had a sense of who I
You
am,
had formed your,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah.
But for them who are trying to navigate and find who they want to be, it must be tough. So Gen Alpha, you're doing well. And on that
So
note, I think we have to wrap it up for today.
yes, we do.
Thank you
It's
so
been an
much.
interesting conversation.
100%. I've loved it actually.
Yeah, definitely. So, please, we would really like to hear your any interesting stories, or any stories at all about how you navigated this issue of code switching, your thoughts on it. How are you raising your children to be able to balance that, you know, embracing their African side, and also sort of embracing the society they're growing up in? So, yeah, would love to hear from you. Please like, share, comment, and until next time,
See you later.
see ya.